Hey, this is Dr. Paul. Let me share with you exactly how to handle controlling the patient and not losing them if you do not take x-rays in your facility and you have to send them out. So you have to remember when you send patients out for services, especially x-rays because they're so vital for a chiropractic office, when you lose, that's a huge opportunity to lose control. So that's where you have to really step up the control factor. So let me walk through exactly. Now, it's not a problem. It's definitely not a problem to have, other people take your x-rays. But let me go into the parameters, and it can be a big problem, and you can lose control real fast. But if you do several of these items, it won't be a problem, and you'll maintain control. But it definitely can be a big problem fast, sending patients out for x-rays. So let's walk through this. Okay, so we're gonna go into the day one. So you finish the consultation and the examination, and let's say that you've established a need for x-rays, and you told them you're gonna need x-rays. So they know why they're gonna need x-rays. Let's say you're at least up to that point, okay? All right, so now remember, from a patient's perspective, you gotta think of this first, from their perspective, not yours, is how long do they think it's gonna take to go get x-rays taken? Now remember, medical services, generally from a patient's perspective, take a long time. So that's a big obstacle, is the amount of extra time it's going to take to go get x-rays taken. Okay, that's a major concept. Number two is money, if they don't know the money involved. So you got the two biggest obstacles. Remember, time and money are always the two biggest obstacles with patients. And now you have a foreign entity. So you're saying you're going to have them go over here to have x-rays taken. And you have to handle time and money. I mean, there's several things you have to handle, but you definitely have to handle time and money. If they don't, now there gets to be a third problem. So they'll just go over there when they think they have time to go over there. And you have to remember, patients lose their motivation 50% every 24 hours. So every 24 hours after you wanted to get those x-rays taken, every day they do not go and get those x-rays, you are significantly increasing the chance they're never going to come back to your office. So you can't do that. You can't go past 24 hours, okay? As a matter of fact, the sequence we want is the first thing we want them to do is go right from our office. That's overwhelmingly, we want at least 80% of them to go right from our office. And I'll show you how to handle that in just a second. Because you have to handle time and money, time and money. If you don't, you're going to have a higher risk of losing that patient. Because life happens. Things get in the way 1, 2, 3, 4 days later, and next thing you know, they don't go over there 3 days later, and they've got all kinds of other things going on in their life now, and you're in the rearview mirror. So here's what we want to do is, first, you need to go to your local center to do it. And I recommend you go to your local MRI center. That's the first good option. Another option, if you don't have something local, something quick, within a mile or two of your office. Now remember, they'll go further distance once. Remember, the more frequency somebody has to do something, the less further they'll go, okay? So if it's only one time, they'll go further once. So it won't be as big of a deal. So, but that's the first place you want to go. They're generally pretty good at taking x-rays and moving in and out. Another option to get x-rays is a local medical facility, like a local medical doctor or an local urgent care center. In other words, getting agreements with them that you can send patients over to have x-rays taken. That's another really viable option. Okay, but again, we got to go back to agreements. So, having said that, let's go into what you need from the center. You need to know two things. So you go to the center and you talk to the manager, who's in charge, whoever it is you're going to refer to. And here's what you want to do. You need to know two things. First, when you send a patient over, now remind them you're going to regularly send your patients to them. So let them know you're a source of business, not a one-off. So make sure they know that. Okay? So tell them, however many patients a month you plan to send over a week. Just tell them, I'm going to send over 5 a week or 30 a month or 20 a month or 50, whatever. let them know you'd like to routinely send over your business, okay? Because we'd like for them to give us a little more priority. So make sure you tell them you're going to give them all your business. And not just the x-rays, but if you need any MRIs, you also send them there too if they take care of you, okay? And here's what you want to do is first of all, you want to know, one, can you get, when you send a patient over, can they get them right in? And within 10 minutes, we can't have them waiting, in the waiting room. Within 10 minutes, can they be seen and have their x-rays taken, and move out? In other words, can we get them into the front of the line, so to speak, because we're regularly giving them business, because we can't have these patients going over there waiting, okay? So number one, we're going to say, hey, is there any way when we send them over there, can you get them in within 10 minutes, because you don't want to go over 12 minutes. People start getting uncomfortable at 12 minutes with waiting. So can you get them in within 12 minutes to take their x-rays? That's what we're going to push for. Okay. Next is, because we got to relay this to the patient, because remember, you have to let the patient know time and money, time and money, time and money, or they will have a natural perception that it takes too long and they're just going to be confused with the money. And that's enough for them not to go or do it and then not come back. So you have to upfront the patient with time or money. So you got to get this information. So number one. Okay, so we're going to have an understanding that we can send our patients in. They can get their, their plain films, go in and leave. Okay, good. Next is money. We're going to want to know the 5 categories of money. Now, so we're going to ask the office manager, okay, how are we going to handle each of the 5 categories of money? So the categories of money are cash, Medicare, major medical, personal injury, workers' compensation. So you have to know how each one of those categories of money are going to be handled by that MRI center. Do you send their insurance person's bill down with them? If it's a cash patient, you want to know what it's going to cost for the x-rays you're going to take. Let's say an AP lateral cervical, AP lateral lumbar. You got to know the basic cost so you can tell the patient to help minimize their obstacle, okay? And usually the x-rays are relatively cheap, to be honest with you. Standard x-rays, especially cash patient standard x-rays at these MRI centers, a lot of times they're only $70, something like that. So get the cash price, get the major medical price, get the Medicare price, get the workers' compensation price, get the PI price. And then you want to know, the third thing is, how's it going to be billed? Because you cannot have any confusion. That's when you'll lose patients, when there's misunderstandings and confusions, or you don't cover vital topics like time and money. That's when you have a high risk of losing the patient. So you want to know, how are they going to do the billing? If it's cash, they pay cash. If it's major medical, are they just going to, get the patient's card and they'll do the billing? If it's PI, they'll do the billing. I mean, you need to know that, okay? So get all the 5 categories of how they are going to be dealing with it. All right, so we know where to send them to. We know the time. We know the money. So this is what we have to do with the patient. So after we've explained we're going to need the x-rays, then when we introduce the concept that they're going to go somewhere else for the x-rays. Now that's after you're done with everything. After you're done with the consultation, exam, told them you're going to need x-rays, all that. So I'm not going to introduce that we're going to send them somewhere else until we've got the agreement of everything that's finishing on that day, typically day 1. Okay? So when we're finished and we said we're going to need these x-rays, blah, 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 and what we're going to do, now, before we finish, we're going to come back and go, oh, by the way, now to get your x-rays, what we're going to do is have you go down here. Now, what you want to do is, it's best if the doctor says it because they have more authority. And you want it, matter of fact, you want it redundant. So the doctor has to say it first because he's got higher authority, and the front desk person has to say it again for redundancy and reaffirmation. And remember, the very first thing we're trying to do with easily 80% of them is to go right from your office to that MRI center. Now, the other thing you need to know from the MRI center is, how are the x-rays going to come back? Are they going to come back? Are they going to give the patient a CD? Are they going to give or a DVD? Are they going to give the patient, is there a portal Do you go into a portal to access the x-rays? And when? Because you should have x-rays to these x-rays the next day, no later. So you need to know how are you going to get these x-rays back from the manager too. So there's no surprises. Everybody knows what's going to happen. So most of the time they hand them, like the CD for x-rays to bring back. Okay, so here's what happens. So now we've already agreed we're going to get x-rays, therapy, everything's going to happen. Now I'm going to come back and say, okay, here's what we're going to do for the x-rays, Mrs. Jones, is we're going to send you down to the local MRI center. It's only 1 mile down the street, so simplify the distance, number one. Simplify the time. So we're going to send you down to the local MRI center. Right when you leave here, we're going to go right down there to get the pictures taken. We're going to call down there and they're going to get you right in. That's what I want you to say. We're going to call down there and they're going to get you right in. That's what I want you to say. Okay? Because this is going to happen at the front desk. You're going to call down there. And I'll tell you why in just a second. So we're going to call down there and get you right in. So what we're going to do, Mrs. Jones, when you leave the office here today, just go straight down to the MRI center. It's just 1 mile down the road, 2 miles down it, whatever. Here's a map. And basically you should have gotten a prescription pad from the MRI center with a map on the back of it. If you don't, make them. If they don't have them, make them. Make copies, get their prescription pad and print off the map on the back of it. Okay, so then I'm going to tell them time and money. I have to address time and money with that patient. So it's going to sound like this. We're going to send you down to when you leave here, we're going to send you right down, we're going to call down and get you right into the MRI center. Doesn't take more than 10 minutes. You'll be able to just walk in and get your x-rays taken and get back. Now, they're going to give you, so we want to minimize time. That's what I just did. It's not very far. When you get there, it's not very long. We're going to call to make sure you can get right in. You see, this is the language of helping to overcome their obstacle of time, that it's going to take a long time, okay? All right, so then I'm going to say, now when you get your pictures taken, they're going to then tell them how it's coming back. And you have to tell them how it's going to be billed, what it's going to cost and what it's going to be billed. So when you go down there, for each category, so if it's a cash patient, I'd say, when you go down there, they only charge for the pictures we're taking, they only charge AP and lateral lumbar, neck, whatever. They only charge $70 or $50, whatever. Okay. If it's Medicare, whatever, they'll bill it for you. They're just going to ask for your insurance card, they'll bill it for you. If it's major medical, they're going to ask for your insurance card, they'll bill it for you. If it's personal injury, they're just going to ask for the auto accident insurance and they'll bill it for you. If it's workers' comp, same thing. So whatever it is, whatever they're going to do with money, okay? But you have to know all 5 categories of money, what they're going to do, what they expect. Because the worst thing that can happen is it not be clear in the patient's mind, because that'll be enough for them not to go. That's an obstacle. Or go down there and there'll be confusion. But the big thing is to get them there. That's the big thing. You got to really reinforce and dampen down and help minimize these obstacles of time or money. And you got to get it done as fast as possible, because time kills all deals. Remember, every 24 hours, motivation decreases 50%. So I'm going to say distance, it's not too far, it's only 3 miles, whatever. We're going to call down and get you right in. That's very important. We're going to call down there and get you right in when you leave here. Next is cover the money. With your type of coverage, they only do this, and how's it going to be billed? They're going to ask for your insurance card or whatever it is, okay? So it's real clear, and then let them know how it's going to be delivered back, especially if they're going to be bringing them with them. And let them know. Now, after you get the x-rays taken, they're going to give you the disc. They're going to put the digital x-rays on a disc, and then I want you to just bring that back to the office when we see you tomorrow, okay? Just bring that with you, okay? If it's a portal, it's real easy. You can just go on the portal, take a look at them, or download them for the patient's file. Okay, so that's what it would sound like from the doctor's perspective. And if the patient said, I can't, go right after the office, or let's say it's after 5 o'clock and the MRI center closed at 5, then the next option is the first thing before work. So, but I don't want to give up yet. If they can't, if the MRI center's still open, I want to fight through the obstacles of time to get them down there today. That's what I'm going to push for. And that's why you have to know the obstacles of time, how to handle that. And get them down there. Okay. If not, they can get you in the first thing in the morning before you go to work. Would you rather do it? So let's say you've went through the obstacles and they can't go from here. Let's say the MRI center's closed because the patient came in at 5:30 or something like that. And then, so let's say the next option. So what they'll do is, can you go in the morning? We'll call down there. Just go in the morning before work, get your pictures taken, and then right after work, you can come into the office and we'll see you there and we'll work with you more depending on what the x-rays show. If they can't do it before work, then the third option is the very next day after work. Because remember, you're supposed to see them the very next day. This is day one, remember, on day one. So on day two, you're supposed to see them the very next business day. So if it gets to that, then if it gets to the third, we don't want to leave it at the third. That's the third option. So it's the third worst option. The best option is always from your office. Okay, so if not, so I'll tell you what, how about after work? What time you get off work? You got to know what time the MRI center is closed, what's the distance of their work from there roughly, and then make sure that they're going to be able to do that. And then we will schedule the patient. So I'll tell you what, we'll right after work, just go right to the MRI center there, get your pictures. They'll give them to you right when you get your pictures, and they give them to you. Just come right to the office, and we'll work with you more depending on what the x-rays show. Okay? So that's what the doctor has to say. Remember, the doctor has to say this. He's got to handle time and money with that MRI center and scheduling them back tomorrow. So we'll see you tomorrow. Okay. So this is what it would sound like if the patient's name was Mary. I finished everything. I told Mary we're going to need x-rays, and everything's done. We're agreed, and then I'm going to say, now Mary, what we're going to do with the x-rays. So I've already explained everything. Now I'm going to just come back around and go into the detail with the x-rays before I finish with the patient and do patient education and therapy and let them go. So I'm saying, now Mary, here's how we're going to handle x-rays. We get our x-rays taken out at the local MRI center. It's only 2 miles down the road. We're going to call down there. They get you right in. We've already talked with the manager. They get you right in. Now with your type of coverage, it's X. So cover whatever it is, cash, major medical, Medicare, whatever it is, PI. Tell them what's going to happen. They're just going to ask for your card. They'll do the billing, whatever. Okay? But you better handle time and money. Time and money. You better make sure it's quick to get down there. Make sure you say, we called to get you in. When you're there, it's only going to take 10 minutes. You better minimize time. Okay? And shoot for it right after work. And then handle money. What's it going to cost depending on what category, so they understand. Okay? Now, when they go to the front, so that's everything that I've covered. So this is what it will sound like. So Mary, what we'll do to shoot your x-rays, we have our x-rays taken at the MRI center down the road. It's only about 3 miles. It's very quick. We're going to call down there. We'll get you right in. Only takes about 10 minutes to get your x-rays taken. Now, after you get them taken, they're going to give you the disc. And then when you come back tomorrow, bring that disc with you, and I'll be able to work with you more again, like I said, depending on what those x-rays show. Okay? But they're going to give you the disc, so make sure you bring that back with you when you come back tomorrow. Now, again, it's only 3 miles down there. We'll call and make sure you can get in. It only takes about 10 minutes. And then just bring the disc back with you tomorrow. Okay? If they can't that night for whatever reason, that's legitimate, then how about in the morning? Does the morning work for you? Can you make it in there before work? Then I'll do that. Okay, just go in before work. They'll give you the disc. After work, we'll see you after work, and we'll work with you more depending on what the x-rays show. If they can't do that, then it's after work. So don't accept anything past those 3. You really got to learn how to fight through obstacles to get those 3 in that order. Because once it goes past that second day and they didn't get their x-rays taken, remember, motivation decreases 50% every 24 hours, and you're out of control. They already know they can't come back unless they have the x-rays. So that's a total inhibiting factor now, if they didn't get those x-rays done, for them to come back. And now it's all over. That's how fast you'll lose the patient. So now what's important is when they go to the front desk. When they go to front desk, that front desk person has to say everything you just said. They have to reinforce time and money. So they say, Mary, First thing they'll do is when they come and say, doctor is going to see you tomorrow. Let's schedule that first, morning or afternoon, early day. Okay, we scheduled for tomorrow. Cost for today is blah. Okay. Now, Mary, see, the doctor wants you to have x-rays. We have our x-rays taken down. She's going to say the same thing. She needs to minimize time and money. And here's the additional step that she's going to do. Mary, we have an agreement with them. They get you right in. It's only 3 miles. Here's the sheet. This is the x-ray. This is the prescription for the x-rays. On the back side is the map. It's just 3 miles down the street on the left or right, whatever it is. Make sure they're real clear with where they're going. I'm going to call down there right now and let them know you're coming. And that's what your front desk has to do. I'm going to call down there right now and let them know you're coming. Okay? So, now she's already handled time. She's minimized time to go down there. She's minimized time when you're there. And then she's also said they're going to give you the x-rays, or however that process is. Make sure you bring them back when you come back tomorrow. Or if it's a cash patient, they typically charge, and in other words, your front desk has to know by looking at that prescription that you wrote what the x-rays are. I see he's going to have your low back x-rays taken. They charge $70 down there. Okay, is that okay, Mary? Or your neck. They charge only $50. Is that okay, Mary? Or if it's major medical, Mary, they'll bill for you. All you got to do is just give them your insurance card and they'll build your x-rays for you, whatever it is. Same with personal injury, etc. Okay? Make sure you handle time and money. You got to address both of these. I cannot overemphasize this. That patient has to be crystal clear of exactly what's happening with time and money, because that'll bring it down and not make it as big of a deal as what's going on in their head. Okay? Now, then what she says is, I'll call down there right now to let them know you're coming. Now, what that does is it increases the commitment on the patient's, from the patient's perspective. So in front of the patient, she gets on the phone, deet, deet, deet. Hello, this is Joe from the chiropractor's office. I'm sending Mary Jo down there right now to have the x-rays taken. That's all she says. And you want this right in front of the patient. Don't do it off to the side. Do not have your staff member like go off to the side and make the call, go into another room. Don't do that. You want this, in other words, you want the patient to see this. And the reason for that is it increases the commitment. And you got to think for yourself, if you were on the other end of all these receivings, you know, it's only 1 mile down the road, we're going to call down there where they can get you right in and out. It only takes 10 minutes. If the doctor said that, and then you go to the front, and the front person desk said all that, and she said, I'm going to call down there right now and let them know you're coming. If you were the patient, you see, you would now go, oh yeah, it's not going to be that big of a deal. It's not going to take that long. But it also helps increase your commitment when she goes, I'm going to call down there right now and tell them you're coming. That's what that does. It significantly increases the likelihood of the patient going from your office to there to get the x-rays taken. That's what that does, okay? All right, so front desk handled time and money. She made the phone call, gives them the prescription. Go down there, they'll get you right in. Make sure they're real, your staff member's real clear on how to give directions to that place. 1 mile, 2 miles, whatever it is. Even if she has to put it in the patient's GPS phone, then you want your staff member to do that. Put the address into the patient's GPS phone and hit start. So now they can just follow their phone. So you want to do that if necessary. Make sure your staff member knows how to do that, okay? Now if you did all that, you got a real high likelihood of these people getting their x-rays and coming back, whether it's right after they leave your office or the morning or the day after, okay? Then they come back with their x-rays, and then that's a different story. When they come in with their x-rays, remember, do not, on day 2, when they come back with their x-rays, do not look at those x-rays in front of the patient. You're not going to give a report of findings on x-rays on day 2. You're just going to report what you found, and it confirms what your consultation and exam, suggest, and anything else that you may have seen on there. That's the beginning of day 4. We don't go over the x-rays until day 4, okay? So there's absolutely no need, and as soon as you pull those x-rays up, you just open a can of worms, to go left on you, right on you, to go everywhere. So you just take when they come in, you just go in, introduce yourself. Did you get a chance to get the x-rays? Okay, let me get those. Okay, good. All right, hold tight. Let me go ahead and take a look at them. I'll be back in just a minute. So you go into your office, do not look at them around that patient. That's going to open a whole nother can of worms of this and that and this. Go look at them. Okay, then come back and then just do your normal day 2, and it won't be any problem. And I cover separately how to handle it if a patient wants to look at their x-rays. But that has nothing to do whether or not they went to an MRI center or not. Remember, 50 to 70% of the patients. Remember, patients are not trained or in the thought process of looking at x-rays. Chiropractors are, and I have this problem with chiropractors that they think patients expect that. No, that's only in the chiropractic industry that does that. When you go to other facilities, medical facilities, they don't show patients their x-rays. It's futile. They don't know what x-rays are, okay? Pathology with medicine and okay? So it is not expected at all. So remember, 70 to 80% of the people, when you say, this is what the x-rays showed, blah, 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 you're done. It's over, okay? Now, out of, say, 20 or 30%, you'll have a few people say, well, can I see them, or what's on them, or can I, something like that. In other words, they're not with you, they're kind of resisting, and they want a little. And that's when you say, no problem. Then you go to what's called the second resistance. And remember, 50% of the people will cave in the second resistance. So I'm not just going to cave to them, I'm going to have them cave to me. So remember, out of a small percentage of people, maybe 20 or 30% will say, well, would you see on them, or can I see them, or something. Remember, it's real small. Then you do the first resistance. Say, no problem. Tell you what, remember we were going to work with you in the next 3 days, and at the end of that time, we're going to pull your x-rays and go over them in detail. So if you don't mind, let me just take time out on your 3rd day, and we'll go over all your x-rays in great detail. Will that work for you? Now, out of the 20 or 30% that asked right then, 80% of those people just said yes, because you acquiesced them. You said, yeah, I will show you. It'll just be in a couple days when I take time out to go over everything, the results of your consultation, examination, and x-rays. So you did say yes, you just asked for a 2-day delay. No big deal. Well, normal people will just say yeah to that. The only person, it's a real small percentage of people, you're talking less than 5% of the total people, will go past the second resistance, and they'll say something, well, is there any way I could see it? Or in other words, you can see they're not satisfied after the second resistance. That, and by the way, that patient has 2 characteristics typically. It's a very low trust patient. They came in from advertising. It's a cold call. You got low trust. Low trust patients don't do that. The second is it's typically an alpha. It's a high choleric personality. That's what's called a strong personality. Alpha male, alpha female, that type of person. But especially when you combine them, you have no trust. It's a cold call. They came in from advertising, and it's a alpha male or female. Now, only in that situation, and only after the second resistance, they're still not satisfied. So remember, what percentage out of 100 patients are we? We're like at 3, 2 or 3 out of 100. So this is in no way a majority of people. This is such a small number, it almost doesn't warrant covering it, to be honest with you. But I'm just sharing with you the sequence. That's the only person that's going to do this. Now, when that person goes past the second resistance and they're not satisfied, that's the clue. You have to show them. Now, when I show them, it's not a report of findings. All I'm going to do is show them, put up their x-ray, and I cover how to show x-ray separately. We're not going to show all the x-rays. I'm just going to show a normal x-ray relative to what we're going to show on theirs, and then I'm going to show their x-ray and say, see the difference between this and that's your problem. Any questions about that? Done. In other words, it's just an acquiescent. We just want to, because now it's at the 3rd resistance. You have to acquiesce them. If it's a 3rd resistance, you can't keep stiff arming them. That's when you'll create a defensive reaction and they'll just quit on you. But remember, I said that's the 3rd resistance. So just because somebody says, hey, can I see him? That doesn't mean you cave. You go, yeah, no problem. If you don't mind, what I would do is work with you next 3 days. In other words, you're going to remind them you're going to work with them for the next 3 days. And then at the end of that time, we're going to take time out and go over the results of your consultation. In other words, everything, including the x-rays. And by just asking for a couple days and saying, yes, you're going to do it, that small 20 or 30% of the people who said, hey, can I see him or whatever, All 90% of those right now are like, okay, that'll be fine. It's like 3 out of 100 people, the second time you say it, they'll say, well, is there any way I could see it? Well, that's it. That's called the third resistance. You gotta pull it, show it to them, and it's real small. It's not a report of findings. Just point it out. It's over, done, move on. And everything still stays the same. Everything still the same. You're not going to change anything as far as the content and the delivering of your content and the categories to cover and everything. I'm still on day 4. Going to take time out and do the report of findings. I'm going to go over the results of the consultation, the results of the examination test, and the results of the x-ray. I'm still going to do that. I'm not going to not do it just because I flashed it on day 2. That's not going to happen. Anyway, that's a very minor thing, but I just wanted to share how to handle that. So back to the x-rays with the MRI center. The doctor has to say it first. You got to handle time and money. So go down to that MRI center, find out how far it is, get an agreement. You can get your patients right in there, understand how the billing's going to be done, what's it going to cost for a cash patient for AP lateral neck or low back. You need to know that information. How's it going to be billed? You need to know for each of the categories. You need to know that. How is and the cost? How's it going to be billed? And then how are the X-rays coming back? You need to know that. So go do that first. Then the doctor says everything. At the end of day 1, when he says we're finished with the consultation exam, we're going to do X-rays, blah blah blah. We'll do therapy. Then at the very end he'll go in. By the way, when we get your X-rays taken, they're going to be down here, and that's when you say everything. It's short time to get there. We're going to call right down there from here to get you in. You're not going to be down there more than 10 minutes. This is what it costs relative to your type of coverage. That's how you handle time and money. They go to the front desk girl clears out for today. I see the cost for today is X, whatever, boom, done. I see the doctor wants to see you tomorrow, morning or afternoon, early or late, boom. I see that he's going to have you go down and take your X-rays. You can go down there right now, they're still open. And she has to say the same thing. I'm going to call down there right now, and she gets on the phone and calls and does it. It's only going to take, it's a short distance down there. It's only 10 minutes when you get down there. This is the cost relative to whatever coverage you have. And this is how the X-rays are going to come back. That is what has to cover. And if you do that, 98 out of 100 patients you'll control. You'll actually get them, go down there. In one of those 3 categories, remember 80% of the time you want them to go right from your office. The only time that that doesn't typically happen is if the MRI center closes at like 5 and you've got the new patient come in at 5 or later. Well, then they have to go either in the morning or after work. And then we want them to go by there first and then come back. But we want to see them the next day, the next business day. So then from here first, if not the morning, the next option is after work. And you shouldn't go past that. That's it. Those are the 3 options, and there's like no reason that shouldn't happen. And you got to learn how to overcome obstacles and not just cave if somebody says, and we teach how to overcome obstacles, but you can't just cave when they say, oh, I can't go down there now, but I can Friday, and it's 3 days from now. That is totally unacceptable. And what it tells you is you didn't fight through the obstacles of time right now. That's what it tells you. But you already know, once it goes past 1 day, there's a good chance you're not seeing that patient again. So we want that patient to get that X-ray either that same day when they leave your office or the next day. And we want to fight through all the obstacles to make it happen and not just say, okay, let's wait till Friday. No, that's not acceptable. Okay? So those are the exact steps. And remember, you have a high likelihood of losing the patient when they leave your office for any services like that. And remember, you need those X-rays. Those X-rays are real important for you to continue the process. And I'll close with this. The worst thing you can do, and I actually had a chiropractor who joined me that this is what he was doing. He'd say, here's your prescription, get your X-rays taken. After you get them taken, come back. That's how he handled it. And he was losing people left and right because he didn't handle the time, he didn't handle the money. Next thing you know, it's 2, 3, 4 days later. Well, they don't need the chiropractor anymore, and there's a whole lot of other stuff going on in people's lives 4 days later. So you gotta really ratchet up. Your staff has to be like unbelievably highly aware that you have a high likelihood of losing this patient. That you gotta have real high control right now because they're going out of your office and you need them to come back. It's not like an NCV, you know, it's not like you're sending them for an NCV and they can still come in for care while they're waiting for their NCV. That's not the case at all. You need those x-rays to keep moving, okay? All right, that's how you handle if you do not have a x-ray in your office. And again, it's no big deal. As a matter of fact, the offices we open now, we don't start with x-rays until they're seeing about 40 to 60 visits a week. So it's no big deal if you handle it with high control. It's a very big deal if you don't handle it with high control.